Hello, and welcome to the Sacred Everywhere. I don't have a conversation to share with you this week, but I do have some on the calendar that I'll be recording soon that I'm really looking forward to sharing with you in the coming weeks. So please look for those as I release them. But so for today, what I wanted to do was share an audio and video version of an essay that I'm also publishing to Substack called "Is There Ever a Just War?" which of course is a timely topic right now. So let's just dive in. Welcome to the Sacred Everywhere. I'm Dr. Sheri Kling, and in this space we explore how the sacred shows up in real life, in our questions, our struggles, our longing, and our hope. Can we find the sacred in every place and everyone? Let's see. Is there ever a just war? We are living in maddening and distressing times. Every generation likely feels this in its own way, but it's hard not to feel a rising sense of panic when bombs start dropping and war rhetoric goes into full force. I feel it in my body, the tightness, the unease, the sense that something fragile in our shared humanity is being stretched to the breaking point. My rule of thumb is simple. Never uncritically accept what any administration says when there's a war agenda at work. You see, in such moments, critical and prophetic voices are often dismissed or silenced, even, it seems, when you're the Pope. Suddenly, everyone becomes an expert in just war theory. But is there ever really a just war? And how might we approach that question from a process perspective? Now, before I answer that question and turn to those points that I want to make, let me just say a word about why I'm drawing on a process perspective in this topic at all. You see, I don't see process philosophy or theology, the work based on Alfred North Whitehead's philosophy, which he called a philosophy of organism. And he was trying to understand the structure of the universe and how it works, how everything works, and how we fit into that whole picture. And so I don't see this philosophy as something abstract. I see it as a way of making spiritual sense of the world that we actually inhabit, which is a world that's revealed by modern science to be dynamic, relational, and still unfolding. It's not a static world made up of little bits of stuff pushed around by external forces. So if reality itself is not static, but participatory, if we are shaping the future moment by moment in relationship with one another, then our moral and spiritual frameworks need to reflect that. So, process thought offers one lens like that. It's grounded, it's relational, and it's deeply attuned to both science and lived experience. And I think it can help us ask better questions in moments like this when we're facing huge, huge problems like we are right now. So, first, a process perspective would tell us that war begins in the illusion of control, not in the reality of relationship. The rhetoric that's surrounding the current Iran conflict on all sides, but especially from US leadership, has leaned heavily on dominance, deterrence, and the supposed necessity of force. Pope Leo, sounding a lot like theologian Thomas J. Ord, has named this a delusion of omnipotence. Process thought helps us see why. So for Alfred North Whitehead, reality isn't made up of isolated things, but of relationships, of moments of experience that are shaped by what has come before and by what is possible next. Now, we are not disconnected actors imposing our will on the world. We're participants in a shared becoming. Now, in that kind of universe, coercion is always a distortion. Whitehead contrasts coercive power with persuasive power. And that's the kind of power that he thinks God exercises, not by force, but by offering possibilities, by luring each moment toward greater beauty and harmony. As Tom Ord puts it, God's power is uncontrolling love, which means that war is not just a tragic necessity. It's often the fruit of a false metaphysics. It's based in the belief that the false belief that control, domination, and destruction can secure the future. But the future is not something we impose. It's something we co-create. Now, several years ago, while I was getting my doctorate at Claremont School of Theology, I wrote a song called Love is Perfect Power, where I've tried to express these truths. One verse says this, and I'll sing it for you a cappella. Our God does not dominate the world. We choose each realization. For perfect love seeks not control. God's power is persuasion. Now, for those of you with good ears and maybe a background in the Christian church, you might recognize that tune as the tune to the hymn, The King of Love My Shepherd Is. And I thought it was particularly appropriate to use a song that originally talks about kingliness and monarchy to kind of disrupt those ideas and put all new words to that beautiful tune. So that's what I did in my song, Love is Perfect Power. Now, the second point I want to make about a process perspective is that it shifts the just war question itself from rules to relational outcomes. Now, traditional just war theory asks, is the cause just? Is this action proportional? Is it a last resort? And these are important guardrails. But process thought presses us even further, even deeper. The question instead becomes, does this action increase or decrease the possibility of life, relationship, and creative transformation? And isn't the answer to that question pretty obvious when it comes to war? Now, Whitehead acknowledges that there are moments of real impasse, situations where every available option carries loss. In such cases, one might choose what he calls the best for the impasse. But even then, that choice is not clean. It's not fully just. It's only the least damaging among tragic possibilities. So war may sometimes be unavoidable, but it is never without cost. Not only in lives lost, but in possibilities foreclosed. Violence reverberates. It narrows the future. And I think war shows a very distinct loss and lack of imagination. It's a lack of thinking outside of one particular pathway. It's like the old joke that says, someone with a hammer is going to invariably look for the nail. So that's what war is about for me. So the deeper question isn't just simply, is this war justified? But what kind of world is this action helping to bring about? And what possibilities are we closing off by choosing it? Now, we see the stakes of that question all around us. Another verse of my song goes like this: This world is full of fear and rage. Domination steals all choices. Compassion, boldness, hope, and strength empower silent voices. Now, finally, a process lens suggests that God is not on the side of war, but within the suffering that it creates. Now, political rhetoric often implies divine backing for military action, as though God stands behind one nation or another, or one football team or another, sanctioning their cause. But both the gospel, the Christian gospel, and process theology reject this outright. God, in the perspective of process philosophy, God does not control history or sanction violence, full stop. Instead, God is present in every moment as the one who feels the world, who suffers with it, and who works within its processes to bring about healing, beauty, and reconciliation. Whitehead called God the fellow sufferer who understands. And Tom Ord reminds us that God's love is steadfast and uncontrolling, always seeking the good, but never imposing it. God is not the author of war, and God is not a cheerleader for war, ever. God is the companion within its consequences, which means that even here, especially here and now in this question, God is luring us toward repair, toward what our Jewish friends would call tikkun olam, the mending of the world, not the bombing of the world. As my song says, so we stand and meet all force with love, tending seeds of transformation. We bring the power that can redeem, God's reconciliation. This sense of meeting force with love is a strength. It's not weakness. It's not being pushed over by force because we're loving and passive. It's meeting that force with a strong presence of love. Think about the whole period of history of the civil rights movement and the nonviolent demonstrations that were done that radically changed history in the United States, that radically changed the hearts and minds of people who were involved and brought this country toward a new awakening of what was possible. That is a perfect example of the way that love meets force as an equal. Now, it may not appear that way always, but I honestly believe that that is what is happening. Now, I believe fully that most wars can be avoided. especially when the wider community responds to injustice early rather than waiting until violence seems like the only remaining option. A process perspective calls us to attend to those earlier moments, those smaller ruptures where different futures that are not tragic are still possible. But we sometimes choose to not go there specifically. We choose to not get involved when it's actually possible to make a difference. And so, yes, war then sometimes may be unavoidable. But in a relational universe, it is never truly just. It's always a rupture that God is working moment by moment to mend. And so perhaps the deeper question for us then is this: will we align ourselves with the forces of coercion and dominance and control, or with the quiet, persistent lure of healing that never gives up on the world? Because in the end, the deepest truth is not domination, but love. As the refrain that I wrote for my song goes, and says this: love is perfect, perfect power. Perfect, perfect power is love. Love is perfect, perfect power. Perfect, perfect power is love. I hope and pray that we might now each find ways to embody that kind of power. Thank you. Thanks for being part of this journey. If these conversations matter to you, your membership helps make them possible. Until next time, may you notice the sacred